I see in your eyes. The same fear that would take the heart of me. A day may come when the courage of men fails, when we forsake our friends and break all bonds of fellowship. But it is not this day. An hour of wolves and shattered shields when the age of men comes crashing down. But it is not this day. This day we fight. By all that you hold dear on this good earth, I bid you stand, men of the West!
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
I will use the word. I am flabbergasted at the allegation here in a court paper, but brand new, that Paul Manafort would, as recently as late last week, still be carrying on contact with an official there with alleged ties to Russian intel about public relations campaigns. It just... on the basis of Paul Manafort's self-interest, it seems odd. For viewers, I want to read a little more from this and get your analysis, Richard, because as you know, judges will often tell parties, on both sides, by the way, not to try their cases in the press. And this new filing from Mueller tonight refers to what the judge had previously said, and it says, at the first appearance before this court, with Manafort present, the judge admonished the parties not to try the case in the press and said, quote, this is a criminal trial, not a public relations campaign. And Mueller goes on to say Manafort, through his lawyer, made statements to the press after his initial appearance, and the court also gave the parties an opportunity to object to that order, which it says they did not do. So even if this wasn't with a Russian, Richard, part of what Mueller is arguing here is that Manafort could be in violation just broadly of trying to do out-of-court arguing of a case that the judge has said should only happen in court.
Well, I think that's what the judge would prefer. That's what's the best thing to do. Now, there are amendment rights that criminal defendants have. If they want to strenuously object to the charges in the public arena, it's awfully difficult to tell them they can't do that under the First Amendment of the Constitution. But there's no First Amendment right to collaborate with Russian agents. And if the court tells you not to hang around with the Russians, the court means business. And I think he's got to go back to the slammer if he doesn't seem to get the point on that.
It is Tuesday, December 5th of 2017, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we feature a daily special every day. It's especially special, and today is Tarrytown Chowder Tuesday. Bon appetit. Well, Richard Painter doesn't ever split hairs, and that's why we have him at the top here for your little amuse bouche to begin your morning. And yes, Manafort needs to be in the slammer. Alright. Alrighty, so lots happening in the news today, as it always is. Let's take a little look at some of the headlines. Oh, Mike Pence's wife finds Trump reprehensible and totally vile, an ex-campaign aide said. Jimmy Kimmel's son Billy has undergone a second successful heart operation, and that was an open heart operation. Whoa. Oh, GOP donors wanted to buy out Trump after the Access Hollywood tape was released, but were told the price was $800 million, and they thought that was a little too high. Well, Roy Moore, our accuser, finds a revealing note from high school. Apparently this woman, when she was a 17-year-old girl, some people might have called her a woman then, but for our purposes, the guy was, 34 and she was 17. And apparently they went out on quite a few dates, and he even sent her some cards. Yep. Mysterious clouds are racing through the Milky Way have been discovered, and you really want to, especially if they're mysterious. And the Supreme Court weighs Baker's refusal to make cake for gay couple. We're still talking about cakes. And a giant wildfire, well, it was not, some people might not consider it to be giant, but it is growing and threatening. And that's in Ventura, which is just north of Los Angeles. So homes are threatened there. Another bit of news that happened yesterday and blew up really on social media is Sam Seder essentially being fired by MSNBC because a neo-Nazi doxer, yeah, I'm looking at you, Cernovich, approached MSNBC with a tweet from 2009 in which Sam Seder was mocking the apologists of Roman Polanski. Cernovich presented the tweet to MSNBC not as the sarcastic, now Sam Seder calls it satire. I beg to differ, it's really sarcasm, but, you know, I'm the grammar Nazi myself, aren't I? Cernovich presented this evidence to MSNBC not as the sarcasm, but as an advocacy of Roman Polanski. And MSNBC decided not to renew the contract of Sam Seder. So we have Cernovich doing his, and I know it's early in the morning, but there's no other way to describe this. What he's doing is the classic rat fucking. James O'Keefe, in spite of the fact of being caught red-handed attempting to sucker in some Washington Post reporters, even though he is caught red-handed in his fraud, continues to have a voice on the Hill. Doctored videos that his Project Veritas has doctored are being used and part now of the congressional record. Now, Sam Seder is just one individual of the left who has been, let's say, vociferous in calling out Trump as really a mobster and a thug. He's not the only one. There has been a concerted effort to go after voices on the left. Now, we might be able to quibble a bit that regardless of how it was that this evidence has been presented. If the evidence is true, well, then we have to do something. And we always do on the left, don't we? So I just think that going after Joy Ann Reid, and I will say even going after an Al Franken and others to try, especially when they're elected officials, the jury may still be out on Al Franken's alleged indiscretions. But he is also a very powerful member of a couple of committees. One, I believe it's the Judiciary, where he took Jeff Sessions to task. So it seems a little too cute that these personages of the left, Joy Ann Reid, Sam Cedar, etc., 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 are being attacked in... I don't need to put on a tinfoil hat to see a strategy of some sort. And when you have a Nazi like Cernovich actually being taken seriously by MSNBC, I don't see the fair and balanced part of that. I know MSNBC essentially turned a blind eye to a couple of decades worth of Matt Lauer's harassment. So they have to fire someone. I mean, they got rid of Matt Lauer. But to make it balanced, I guess Sam Cedar got caught up in that mindset. It doesn't take much. Remember Shirley Sherrod? She was fired when she was still on the interstate. Called her up. You're fired. That was another James O'Keefe rat fucking. Manipulating and editing video to make Shirley Sherrod say something that she did not say. And now Cernovich is drawing up out of context a tweet from 2009. And I guess the bean counters at MSNBC are incapable of understanding sarcasm and satire. Speaking of sarcasm and satire, Duke revokes Charlie Rose's journalism award. I suppose that seems duly expected. Trump aides are paranoid after Mike Flynn's plea deal, and I think they should be a little bit more than paranoid. I don't think that many of them have a large enough bank account in which to get adequate counsel. There are public defenders, though I think they may even then make too much to get a public defender. So sad, so sad. Leaks show how super wealthy school privatizers sought to influence Hillary in the lead up to the campaign. And, I guess maybe that might be a hit against Hillary, except you know what she did? She turned them away. But, they tried, so therefore she must be a wicked witch. A feminist-bashing alt-right activist is upset to learn her movement is full of angry, misogynistic men. Well, I guess you have to immerse yourself in it to finally find out what the heck is going on. Oh, and scandal of scandals, leaked documents show that Mormons are bothering Trump's grandparents in the afterlife. Yeah, they've baptized them to save their eternal souls. Now, you can't blame the Church of Latter-day Saints for doing this, because existence goes on and people need to be saved. So there. All right. So let's look at the issues on the rest of the menu that we will be attending to today. We'll explore how the large number of fake comments submitted to the Federal Communications Commission has caused the New York Attorney General to urge the Commission to delay the vote rolling back net neutrality rules. The founder and CEO of outdoor gear maker Patagonia is suing Trump over his evil land grab of Bears Ear National Monument, and another Trump company signs another deal with another foreign developer and breaks another Trump promise. And then after the break, we'll move everything to the chef's table for a discussion on one of the Enlightenment's towering figures, Carl Linnaeus, the Swedish botanist, physician, and father of modern taxonomy, also invented the index card. But like all information systems, the index card helps set the stage for categorizing people and for the prejudice and violence that comes along with such classification. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Alrighty. Now, if you would go to netrootsradio.com and go to the bottom of the homepage there, because that is the homepage, netrootsradio.com, you'll notice to the rightish of the homepage at the bottom there, the chat room link. And Kelly Lincoln, our roaring girl, monitors that quite frequently during the day. But to the leftish of the chat room link is the donate, contribute buttons. And thank you for donating and contributing, because we're able to pay our bills because of your generosity. And thank you so much for that. You can get a hold of me. Of course, the chat room link is one way, but I don't monitor that as much as I do Twitter. So find me on Twitter at Justice Putnam, and you can also get a hold of me on Daily Kos. And so why don't you? I would like that, and maybe you would too. All right, let's get into let's tuck ourselves into the rest of the menu here, and all right. So Snyderman is a little upset about what the hell is going on. This is out of Reuters by Diane Bartz. New York's Attorney General urged the Federal Communications Commission to delay a vote rolling back net neutrality rules because of the large number of fake comments submitted to the agency about the issue. The FCC is expected to vote on February 14th on Chairman Ajit Pai's plan to scrap the 2015 landmark net neutrality rules, moving to give broadband service providers sweeping power over what content consumers can access. Pai is a Republican appointed by Donald Trump. New York Attorney General Eric Schneiderman has been investigating allegations that more than half of the 21.7 million public comments submitted to the FCC about net neutrality used temporary or duplicate email addresses and appeared to include false or misleading information. Schneiderman said the FCC agreed on Monday to assist in the probe. That's yesterday. We're going to hold them to that, and in the meantime, it's vital that the FCC delay the vote until we know what happened, said Schneiderman. The 2015 rules changed the designation of internet service providers, which are usually big cable and telephone companies, so they were banned from blocking or throttling, and that's, of course, slowing legal content, or from seeking payments to speed delivery of certain content, and that's called paid prioritization. FCC Commissioner Jessica Rosenworcel, who opposes the net neutrality rollback, agreed that the vote should be delayed. The integrity of the public record matters. The FCC needs to get to the bottom of this mess. No vote should take place until a responsible investigation is complete. Under Pai's proposal, the Obama-era rules would be reversed and ISPs would only have to disclose blocking or throttling. Now, one thing this article does not mention is that Ajit Pai wants to rush the vote, not delay it. And of the 21.7 million public comments, half of those are suspected of being fake. They were also advocating rolling back net neutrality. Interesting. I wonder if any of it was in Cyrillic. Declaring that he is not going to stand back and just let evil win, Yvon Chouinard, founder and CEO of outdoor gear maker Patagonia, is fighting against Trump and his evil government. And this is out of Share Blue Media by Eric Bullard. Continuing his obsession with trying to undo everything President Barack Obama accomplished while in office, Donald Trump yesterday, that was Monday, moved to radically reduce the size of Bears Ears National Monument in Utah. In an anti-environmentalist maneuver that is overwhelmingly opposed by Native American tribal leaders in the region, Trump wants to reduce the size of the monument designation by nearly 90%. Who is happy about the radical shift? Businesses that want to use the protected land for profit by extracting oil and gas. The drillers, miners, and frackers who were shut out by Bill Clinton and Barack Obama's use of the Antiquities Act would have new leases on life, CNN reports. I would think they'd have new leases on that unprotected land also. Or maybe they don't even bother with the leases because they own it outright. Maybe that's more up their alley. Trump's unprecedented move to shrink a U.S. monument is certain to spark a protracted court case. Trump's effort could alter the course of American land conservation, possibly opening millions of protected public access acres to oil and gas extraction, mining, logging, and other commercial activities, the New York Times reports. Yvon Chouinard, founder and CEO of outdoor gear maker Patagonia, told CNN's Bill Weir that he's going to help fight against Trump and his evil government.
Well, I think the only thing this administration understands is lawsuits.
And the head of Patagonia says he's ready for a long legal fight.
We're losing this planet. And we have an evil government. And, you know, not just the federal government, but the wacko politicians out of Utah and places. I mean, it's evil. And I'm not going to stand back and just let evil win.
Chouinard will be part of a larger coalition, including the Navajo Nation, that vowed to challenge Trump's decision in court. I think it's a shame that only 4% of American lands are national parks. Costa Rica's got 10%. Chile will now have way more parks than we have, Chouinard said. We need more, not less. Monuments are similar to U.S. national parks, which are created by acts of Congress, except that monuments are created by presidents via the Antiquities Act, a law that has been used by both parties for more than a century to protect millions of acres of federal land. Trump now becomes the first president to basically try to unprotect monument land. Evil indeed. Okay, the last item here at the Front Cafe is by Travis Geddes out of Raw Story. A construction company partially owned by the governments of Saudi Arabia and South Korea plans to build a Trump-branded resort in Indonesia, despite Donald Trump's assurance that his family business would not do business with foreign governments. Yeah, well, maybe he forgot. Maybe that wasn't him. Maybe it wasn't him that said that. He doesn't talk like that. Didn't sound like him. MNSC Land, a Trump organization partner, entered into a preliminary agreement with POSCO E&C Indonesia on the first phase of development of a luxury resort. Yeah, well, I guess it looks luxurious, but the food is terrible. The Trump partners signed a memorandum of understanding November 11th in Jakarta through its subsidiary PT Little Nirwana Paragayangan. POSCO E&C Indonesia is a subsidiary of POSCO E&C, which is partly owned by Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund, which funds infrastructure projects commissioned by the Saudi government. I don't know, why not just hire that company out of Whitefish? Might be cheaper in the long run. South Korea's public pension fund owns 10.88% of POSCO, according to an independent auditor's report, and the Saudi Arabian Monetary Authority owns 2.38%. Donald Trump promised before his inauguration that the Trump Organization had agreed not to engage in any foreign deals or new transactions with a foreign entity, and he placed his holdings in a trust he can draw on for his exclusive benefit at any time. Okay. Now, it's been previously reported that in September, a major construction company owned by the Chinese government was awarded a $32 million contract to build a 6-lane road for the Trump World Golf Club Dubai project. Oh, is that the one that Tiger Woods is involved in? Now, I suppose Trump could argue that this isn't a new deal. This deal's been in the works for a long time. I never said that I wouldn't enter into any old deals. I wonder. All right. Well, let's get to our break, and we'll move everything back to the chef's table and have a deep discussion back there. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to networksradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
Sam Rayburn, a legendary Speaker of the U.S. House in the 1940s and 50s, offered this piece of ethical advice for lawmakers who were conflicted over whether to vote for the people or the lobbyists. Every now and then, he said, a politician ought to do something just because it's right. Wow, ethics! How quaint. Today's House Speaker, Paul Ryan, has perverted Rayburn's ethics, advising his Republican majority to vote for anything just because it's right-wing. Along with Donald Trump and Senate Leader Mitch McConnell, Ryan is now trying to push America's tax law so far to the right that it's horribly wrong. Tax proposals can be complex, but this 429-page monster is shockingly easy to understand. The Trump-Ryan-McConnell triumvirate intends to take money from millions of working families and give it to the world's wealthiest people and richest multinational corporations. Of course, when they talk publicly about their proposal, they claim it's all about helping you working stiffs. It's, quote, real tax reform for everyday hard-working Americans, trumpeted our president. In private, though, they reveal to their biggest campaign donors that the plan lets them help themselves to the people's money, giving these corporate elites a huge windfall. The biggest ever, bragged Trump. In fact, the 400 richest families in America would average $5.5 million in new tax breaks. Meanwhile, if your income is under $75,000 a year, you'll end up worse off. This is Jim Hightower saying, forget trickle-down economics. The GOP is practicing tinkle-down economics. Why would they push such an evil, shameful policy? Because it's not you common voters they care about. It's the moneyed elites who fund their re-election campaigns. As one Republican pusher of this tax giveaway to the rich put it, my donors are basically saying, get it done or don't ever call me again.
Need an antidote to the progressive blues? Want some good news about how grassroots folks are rebelling against the corporate powers and winning? Well, here's an easy-to-swallow pill for you, the Hightower Lowdown. Hightower's monthly newsletter will give you the lowdown, even as it lifts you up. It's 4 pages a month, jam-packed with facts you can use, actions you can take, and Jim's own Texas humor, all for only $15 a year. To become a lowdowner, go to hightowerlowdown.org.
This is an important message from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. When it snows this winter, make sure you clear more than your driveway. Before you hit the road and before you get in the driver's seat, check to be sure that your vehicle's tailpipe is clear of snow. If the tailpipe is blocked, carbon monoxide, an odorless, colorless, and deadly gas produced by your engine can build up quickly inside your vehicle, poisoning anyone inside. To learn more, call 1-800-CDC-INFO. That's 1-800-232-4636.
This is Solidarity News on Radio Labour.
This is a Radio Labour report recorded on December 5th, 2017. I'm Mark Boulanger.
This is the great con. They're going to give more to the rich and to corporations, and the people in the middle and the bottom are going to end up paying for it.
In the United States, labor unions are fighting plans by the ruling right-wing Republican Party to dramatically cut tax rates for corporations. Both the Senate and the House of Representatives have agreed to plans which will cut the official corporate tax rate from 35% to 20%, while increasing taxes for the middle class and the poor. Richard Trumka is the president of the AFL-CIO, the largest labor federation in the U.S.
It is the great con. Any tax plan that's going to be good for working people should do 3 basic things. 1, corporations, Wall Street, and the rich should pay their fair share. 2, it should create enough revenue that will create jobs and invest so that we can invest in infrastructure and education to meet the needs of working people in our communities. And 3, it should destroy all incentives to offshore jobs and profits. This tax plan fails miserably on all 3 of those things. They increased the rate on the people at the bottom from 10 to 12%. They decreased the rate for all the people at the top. There simply is no evidence in theory or in fact to support the notion that cutting rates actually increases growth. Let me use Boeing. From 2002 to 2016, Boeing's effective rate was 3%. Now, it doesn't get any better than that. Corporate America has 3 years of record profits. So it's not a tax code holding them back. This is the great con. They're going to give more to the rich and to corporations, and the people in the middle and the bottom are going to end up paying for it. That is bad for the country, bad for the economy, and truly bad for workers.
The UN agency focused on matters of work in the world, the ILO, has released a report which shows that 4 billion people are without social benefits such as health care, maternity leave, or unemployment insurance. Daniel Johnson of UN Radio reports.
Social security protection is a basic human right, ILO head Guy Ryder told journalists in Geneva. When people have it, governments reap the benefits. Today, however, Mr. Ryder explained that only 45% of the global population have access to at least one social benefit. Only 29% have comprehensive protection.
In 2017, this global lack of social protection is, I think, and should be regarded as being completely unacceptable. That means that the aggregate level of public expenditure on social protection needs to be increased to extend social protection coverage, particularly in Africa, in Asia and the Arab state countries where marked underinvestment in social protection prevails.
Despite a slight improvement in welfare coverage since 2015 around the world, much more investment by governments will be needed to extend protection to all, not least the 1.3 billion children who have no cover whatsoever. ILO says this is particularly true in rural areas where 56% of people lack health coverage compared to 22% in towns and cities. Some countries are already tackling the problem by offering simplified tax returns to workers previously in the informal sector. Once on the government's books, contributions from these workers help pay for maternity leave, job seekers allowance, disabilities benefit and care for senior citizens. The evolving world of work and technology has also provided new opportunities to extend social protection, ILO says. In Uruguay, for example, e-taxi provider Uber's drivers can download a phone application which automatically deducts their social security charges. Elsewhere, ILO warns that progress in welfare protection risks being pushed back, the result of fiscal savings put in place after the global economic crisis. This is likely to be the case in Europe, the agency's Isabel Ortiz warns, where pensioners in 19 countries face lower benefits by 2060. You have to balance equity with sustainability, she told journalists. Daniel Johnson, United Nations, Geneva.
And that's it. International labor news you can use. Thank you for listening. And remember, it's all about global solidarity.
Each year, more than 200,000 people are hospitalized with flu. Like all Americans, Native peoples and tribal communities need to protect themselves. Flu spreads mainly from person to person through coughing or sneezing. People can also get infected by touching something with flu viruses on it and then touching their mouth or nose. Most people with the flu have mild symptoms, but pregnant women, young children, the elderly, and people with illnesses like asthma, diabetes, or heart disease are more likely to suffer from serious complications. Protect yourself, your family, and your community from the flu. Get vaccinated every year. Cover your coughs and sneezes. Wash your hands often, and if you're sick, stay home. Protect the circle of life. Know the facts about the flu.
This is an important message from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. After a storm or disaster, it's important to eat only safe food. Throw away perishables like meat, poultry, fish, eggs, and leftovers stored above 40 degrees Fahrenheit for 2 hours or more. Throw away food with an unusual odor, color, or texture. Throw away food that may have come in contact with floodwater, including food in swollen, punctured, and damaged cans. When in doubt, throw it out.
From Washington, this is your World in 2 Minutes. I'm your host, Luke Vargas, for Talk Media News. World leaders are reacting with unease to President Trump's possible recognition of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. That announcement could come as early as Wednesday. Turkey's President Recep Erdogan described such a declaration as a, quote, red line for Muslims, while Saudi Arabia's U.S. ambassador said Trump's move would, quote, have a detrimental impact on the peace process. A threat by Palestine to sever diplomatic contacts with the U.S. would further derail already fraught peace talks spearheaded by Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. A poll of voting-age Germans by the nonprofit Korber Foundation finds that challenges to the U.S.-German relationship caused by President Trump loom as a more pressing foreign policy challenge than Kim Jong-un in North Korea, Turkey, or Russia. More than half of Germans surveyed characterized relations with the U.S. as bad or very bad, but there is one threat Germans believe trumps Trump, and that is an influx of refugees. A majority of Germans said they want to see a cap on the number of refugees allowed into the country. And the search for a Malaysian Airlines plane that disappeared in the southern Indian Ocean could be back on. MH370 is believed to be resting at the bottom of the seafloor, and an expensive, nearly 3-year search effort came up empty. But a proposal by a U.S. company to use 8 underwater drones to scan the seafloor is sparking interest within the Malaysian government, which could award millions of dollars if the search is successful within 90 days. The firm, Ocean Infinity, is already positioning equipment in South Africa ahead of possible deployment to the search area. Some 239 people are believed to have died when MH370 disappeared on March 8, 2014. For more global news headlines, visit talkmedianews.com.
All right. Thank you for being patient during our break and accompanying us to the chef's table, where we have a little intimate gathering for the special people. And that's right. If you're in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, you are special. So let's take a look at local weather and weather from around the world. Here along the banks of the Rogue River and the Rogue River Valley of southern Oregon, it is currently 32 degrees. Some people would call that freezing. We're going to be a bit warmer than yesterday. We're going to get to a high of 54. Looks like for the next week or so we'll be in the mid-50s. And nights, lows will be in the mid-30s. So that would, I'm fine with that. Winds are light and variable out of the north currently. And so they'll be light and variable tonight too. And no forecast about where the wind will be coming from, unfortunately. Let's see. Pressure is holding at 30.48 inches. Visibility at 10 miles. Humidity is 72%. Oh, I should mention, if I hadn't already, no forecast of rain, so we'll be drying out a little bit. Though these cold days will take a bit longer to dry out. All right. So weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they have purchased, and these people live around the world. London is 48 degrees and overcast. France, which would be Paris, actually, is 43 and overcast. Rome is 55 and clear. Kiev is 32 degrees with snow. Kabul is 38 with haze. Hong Kong, 68 and clear. Tokyo is 52 degrees and clear. Sydney, Australia is 65 degrees Fahrenheit, mostly cloudy. San Francisco is 49 degrees and clear, and New York is 56 degrees Fahrenheit and overcast. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they have purchased, and these people live around the world. Way back when I was in junior high school and high school, I was on the debate team. And this was way back before computers, folks. In fact, when I first started on the debate team in 7th grade, the push-button Princess phone had not even been distributed yet. That's how long ago it was. And so since we didn't have computers, we had index cards. Boxes and boxes and boxes of file cards, 3x5. And those who were effective in the use of that catalog during debate tended to be great debaters. This article is out of The Atlantic by Daniela Bly. Like every graduate student, I once holed up in the library cramming for my doctoral oral exams. This ritual hazing starts with a long reading list. Come exam day, the scholar must prove mastery of a field, whether it is Islamic art or German history. The student sits before a panel of professors, answering questions drawn from the book list. To prepare for this initiation, I brought a lifetime supply of index cards. On each 4x6 rectangle, I distilled the major points of a book. My index card, portable, visual, tactile, easily rearranged and reshuffled, got me through the exam. Yet it never occurred to me, as I rehearsed my talking points more than a decade ago, that my index cards belonged to the very European history I was studying. The index card was a product of the Enlightenment, conceived by one of its towering figures, Carl Linnaeus, the Swedish botanist, physician, and the father of modern taxonomy. But like all information systems, the index card had unexpected political implications. It helped set the stage for categorizing people and for the prejudice and violence that comes along with such classification. In 1767, near the end of his career, Linnaeus began to use little paper slips of a standard size to record information about plants and animals. According to the historians Isabelle Charpentier and Stéphane Mulleville, these paper slips offered an expedient solution to an information overload crisis for the Swedish scientist. More than 1,000 of them, measuring 3 by 5 inches, are housed at London's Linnean Society. Each contains notes about plants and material culled from books and other publications, while flimsier than heavy stock and cut by hand. They are virtually indistinguishable from modern index cards. The Swedish scientist is more often credited with another invention, binomial nomenclature, the Latinized two-part name assigned to every species. Before Linnaeus, rambling descriptions were used to identify plants and animals. Thanks to his landmark study, Systema Naturae, naturalists had a universal language which organized the natural world into the nested hierarchy still used today: species, genus, family, order, class, phylum, and then kingdom. In the 18th century Europe, Linnaeus became a household name. "Tell him I know no greater man on earth," said Rousseau of his Swedish idol. Like other savants of his day, Rousseau saw the study of plants as a moral pursuit, because that's what Rousseau was all about. Virtuous escape into nature. Of course, Rousseau was such a contrarian. Oh, yes, he was. But regardless, Germany's man of letters, Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, confessed that after Shakespeare and Spinoza, no one had influenced him more than Linnaeus. God created, Linnaeus arranged, went the adage. But despite his meteoric success, Linnaeus had a problem. The man who made order from nature's chaos did not have a good management system for his own work. His methods for sorting and storing information about the natural world couldn't keep up with the flood he was producing. Linnaeus's appearance only added to an aura of disorder. Stunned visitors described the Prince of Botany as markedly unshaven, with dusty shoes and stockings. Writing about himself, Linnaeus was even less charitable. Brow furrowed, a low wart on the right cheek and another on the right side of the nose, teeth bad, worm-eaten. Worms aside, the real issue vexing Sweden's top scientist was how to manage a data deluge. He had started out collecting plants in the woods of his native southern Sweden, but as his profile grew, so did his research and writing, and the number of students under his wing. Achieving scientific renown of their own, Linnaeus's students sent him specimens from their travels in Europe, Russia, the Middle East, West Africa, and China. According to Charpentier and Mulleville, most botanists of the era employed a team to manage their affairs that would keep track of correspondence and categorize specimens, but not Linnaeus, who had preferred to always work alone. Starting in the 1750s, he complained in letters to friends of feeling overworked and overwhelmed Burnout, it turns out, is not a modern condition. Linnaeus's predicament wasn't new either. In her book, Too Much to Know, Managing Scholarly Information Before the Modern Age, the historian Anne Blair explains that since the Renaissance, the discovery of new worlds, the recovery of ancient texts, and the proliferation of printed books unleashed an avalanche of information. The rise of far-flung networks of correspondence only added to the circulation of knowledge. Summarizing, sorting, and searching new material wasn't easy, especially given the available tools and technologies. Printed books needed buyers, and while notebooks kept information in one place, finding a detail buried inside one was another. Finishing an academic dissertation wasn't just a test of erudition and persistence. Dealing with the material itself, recording, searching, retrieving it, was a logistical nightmare. Linnaeus experimented with a few filing systems. In 1752, while cataloging Queen Ludovica Ulrica's collection of butterflies with his disciple Daniel Solander, he prepared small uniform sheets of paper for the first time. That cataloging experience was possibly where the idea for using slips came from. Solander took this method with him to England, where he catalogued the Sloane collection for the British Museum and then Joseph Banks' collections using similar slips. This became the cataloging system of a national collection. Linnaeus may have drawn inspiration from playing cards. Until the mid-19th century, the backs of playing cards were left blank by manufacturers, offering a practical writing surface where scholars scribbled notes. Playing cards were frequently used as lottery tickets, marriage and death announcements, notepads, and business cards. France's revolutionary government issued the world's first national cataloging code, calling the playing cards to be used for bibliographical records. And according to Charpentier and Müllerville, playing cards were found under the floorboards of the Uppsala home Linnaeus shared with his wife, Sarah Lisa. In 1780, 2 years after Linnaeus's death, Vienna's court library introduced a card catalog, the first of its kind, describing all the books on the library shelves in one ordered system. It relied on a simple, flexible tool, paper slips. Around the same time, the library catalog appeared. Europeans adopted banknotes as a universal medium of exchange. This wasn't a historical coincidence. Banknotes, like bibliographical slips of paper, and the books they referred to were material, representational, and mobile. Perhaps Linnaeus took the same mental leap from free-floating banknotes to little paper slips. Sweden's great botanist was also a participant in an emerging capitalist economy. Now, Linnaeus never grasped the full potential of his paper technology. Born of necessity, his paper slips were idiosyncratic. There is no sign he ever tried to rationalize or advertise the new practice. Like his taxonomical system, paper slips were both an idea and a method designed to bring order to the chaos of the world. The passion for classification, a hallmark of the Enlightenment, also had a dark side. From nature's variety came an abiding preoccupation with the differences between people. As soon as anthropologists applied Linnaeus's taxonomical system to humans, the category of race, together with the ideology of racism, was born. It's fitting, then, that the index card would have a checkered history. To take one example, the FBI's J. Edgar Hoover used skills he burnished as a cataloger at the Library of Congress to assemble his notorious editorial card index. By 1920, he had cataloged 200,000 subversive individuals and organizations in detailed, cross-referenced entries. Nazi ideologues compiled a deadlier index card database to classify 500,000 Jewish Germans according to racial and genetic background. Other regimes have employed similar methods, relying on the index card's simplicity and versatility to catalog enemies real and imagined. The act of organizing information, even notes about plants, is never neutral or objective. Anyone who has used index cards to plan a project, plot a story, or study for an exam knows that hierarchies are inevitable. 40 years ago, Michel Foucault observed in a footnote that, curiously, historians had neglected the invention of the index card. The book was Discipline and Punish, which explores the relationship between knowledge and power. The index card was a turning point, Foucault believed, in a relationship between power and technology. Like the categories they cataloged, Linnaeus's paper slips belong to the history of politics as much as the history of science. All right, folks. Well, we better close up here at the chef's table so we can clean up West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy and open up the front cafe tomorrow. We'll have, Smothered Benedict Wednesday for the daily special. That's what we'll have for tomorrow, of course. So we'll be back here bright and early and hope that you are too. So join us then. We'll have some great content, of course, throughout the rest of the day. Tom Hartman coming up about 6 minutes after the hour, followed by Democracy Now! And then Randy Rhodes. We can only imagine what Randy has to say about, does Manafort need a ankle bracelet? Or does he actually need to be locked up? And other news of the day, because Randy Rhodes is always on fire. So stay tuned to Netroots Radio 24/7, 365, and we'll be back here tomorrow for West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-dee-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.